yes, true love is the greatest thing in the world. Except for a nice MLT, mutton, lettuce, and tomato, where the mutton's nice and lean and the tomatoes are... Oh, hello, and thank you for tuning in. Are there Lakers to talk about? There's plenty of Lakers to discuss. I apologize that I've been absent for some time. Been a lot of things going on. Trying to establish an area of space where I can create this content. Things are slowly in the works, ordering some things to kind of give it more of a polished look. I got a green screen that I'm going to be trying to purchase soon, and will provide a little bit more excitement behind me than just some Yosemite El Capitan Half Dome. I think it's Half Dome, I'm not quite sure. But I'm sure we don't want to be talking about my nature pictures and so forth. We're here to discuss the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm sure that it's a conversation we're not really excited to have. We're 2-8, losing another to the Utah Jazz, who I guess we all just didn't get the memo.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I thought when you trade off Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert and basically every part of your roster that was that made it competitive, that made it playoff bound, you naturally assume that they're going to fall off the face of the earth, because we see it time and time again with the Lakers. When you don't have we don't have superstars, you just kind of collapse, right? That's just kind of the belief in the Lakers circles and the Lakers masses. You need superstars to win. Well, apparently to the Utah Jazz and other teams that don't necessarily possess the superstar quality of play, you just need guys that can do you just need players that can actually facilitate in their roles. And so the Lakers fall 139-116 to the Utah Jazz, making their record now 2-8, and the Utah Jazz 9-3. I know after Matt Ryan's dramatic 3-point shot to send it into overtime over the Pelicans that maybe we were beginning to turn a corner. Yes, given the fact that it was an instance that you might say was a little bit lucky. I don't know. But nevertheless, you kind of need sometimes that ball to bounce in your favor. You kind of need that luck of the dice to roll in your favor. And so how they won that game was kind of irrelevant. Yes, the Lakers blew a 16-point lead and the Pelicans came back and required the guy to miss 2 free throws. But nevertheless, again, the Lakers found a way to maximize that opportunity, and it made it their second in a row. At the time, they were 2-4 or 2-5, and you're starting to really think, could this be a turnaround? Especially watching Russell Westbrook just go from, just night and day, Jekyll and Hyde, guy only averaging 10 points. Sorry, Mr. Roboto. Last 6 games coming off the bench, he's averaging 19 points on 50+% shooting. He's even shooting like 46% from 3. I don't know what has gotten into Russ, but it's a really nice, it's refreshing, because everybody, really including myself, I kind of started to skew away because I just felt the guy was getting too much slack. But at the same time, I knew it was kind of inevitable. Like Russ is Russ. There's really not much you can do. But the guy's been playing pretty well. He's been playing pretty solid. He's been playing. Yes, there's those sequences of kind of Russ plays, Russ moments, but you can honestly say that this 2-8 struggle essentially doesn't really have anything to do with Russ. I'll take that back. It does. It will always. There will always be a residual effect. There will always be a ripple effect from making that trade for Russell Westbrook. As much as Russ has been playing well, coming off the bench, looking like somebody who's really changed his tune, been able to recommit, reestablish, adapt. The byproduct is still in the roster itself. That is kind of a resounding reminder every time we see this team struggle, just from a collective standpoint with their roster. When we're asking, where are they going to get the shooters? Where are they going to get the scoring? Where are they going to get the playmaking? Like, it all trickles back to the fact that the Lakers made a trade for a player who has essentially taken so much of their salary cap that you can't make supplementary moves to really revamp the roster around these three. And you even had Darvin Ham, which I wasn't necessarily taken back by his comments. I mean, it's obvious, like it's clear what the challenges coming into this season were going to be. What I was taken back a little bit by was you kind of admitting to it, or you kind of owning up to it, because you knew coming into this season, you knew when you accepted the job as the head coach. I mean, Darvin Ham has even prefaced in other post-game interviews and such that recognizing the circumstance of their roster construction, recognizing the financial structure of what they're in right now, but kept reaffirming, kept reassuring that they were going to get it done, that his brand and style of basketball would be uplifting and would be conducive to the overall collection of these players. Darvin Ham has continued to, share this optimistic viewpoint that, getting the guys to sacrifice, getting the guys to buy in, getting the guys to play with the competitive grit and the competitive fire, kind of puts you in a far better position. Even examining what their roster was last year, saying that, they made a lot of revamps and making it younger, making it more athletic. So when I then hear Darvin Ham kind of opine to the fact that, the tax breakers or the tax restrictors, right? Like basically saying when you have three players that accumulate most of your salary, it's going to be incredibly challenging to provide the depth around it. And yes, we know that, but you have been, Darvin Ham was reassuring us, was giving this sense of commitment and confidence that their style of basketball, and though it has improved, like defensively, we've seen, well, maybe not after, this last matchup against them, and really the last couple of matchups, where their offense has been better, but at the detriment of their defense. So nevertheless, I respect Darvin Ham's honesty. I respect Darvin Ham's transparency. And I know that I don't believe Darvin Ham was using that as a full-on excuse as to why they're struggling. It's basically like, we understand the situation that we're in. We understand that there's a lot of variables at play. There's a lot of these narratives and rhetoric that's surrounding and hovering around our team, but we cannot buy into that, right? It's like, it's easy to allow those things to become an excuse, right? It's easy to allow those things to become the detractors, the reasoning as to why you can't compete because really the Lakers have been, in the most part, in these matchups. They've been in these games. You can point to some aspects as to why they are struggling to finish these games. We've talked at large their second half woes. We've talked at large Anthony Davis, tales of two halves. Again, only attempted one shot in the fourth quarter, but I will say at that point the Lakers were it was already a done deal. They were down by like 17 at that point. But again, Anthony Davis taking 12 shots in that first half, looking dominant as ever, and already I believe had 19 points on 8 of 11 shooting or 9 of 12 of shooting of some resort. Then you come into the second half and you basically take 5 shots in the third quarter, you make one, and you take 1 shot in the fourth and you make it. So it's just, unfortunately, as I stated before, the theme with this team, and there's many, but one of the pivot points with this team is the inability to consistently achieve each of the things all at once, right? So whether it's playing consistent offense along with your consistent defense, whether it's playing consistent defense along with your consistent offense, making your free throws, rebounding, protecting the ball, there's all of these facets that the Lakers do well in some, but they don't do well in others. They do well for a half, but they don't do well for the next half. They do well for a quarter, but they do miserably for 2 more quarters. It's that's basically the byproduct of a bad team. Because oftentimes you see bad teams are in games, right? They'll give you a first or second quarter. They'll give you a half. Maybe they'll give you the second half. Or they'll give you a stretch of 10 minutes where they get back in a game and it looks like it's going to be legitimately in their advantage to win. But it's all about replication. It's all about consistency. It's a matter of habits, right? I believe it was John Wooden who said, and there's many quotes that he has said, but one of them is practice makes permanence, right? And there's just this understanding, it's no longer a matter of habits anymore. It just becomes ingrained as who you are as a team. Sometimes you'll have a game or two where you have some anomalies where you're turning over the ball or you're having bad possessions, but your offense, your discipline, your work at the positive habits you become able to create consistency out of that. And so it's something that you can fall back on. With the Lakers, they just have too many bad habits, okay? And whether it's from a defensive lens, whether it's from an offensive lens, they simply are not capable of replicating the good sequences, the good habits. It's, for example, you have a situation with Anthony Davis where you get him a really great look, right? And it's easy basket. You see that he has the clear matchup, the clear mismatch. Then you'll proceed 3 or 4 plays next where he doesn't even get the ball, where you're not even working that same type of action. It's like you keep doing it until they make adjustments, right? Like if I have a matchup with a player that is just working every single time, you keep going to it. But for some reason, this Lakers team says, yeah, that was too easy for us. Let's just go ahead and just go away from the action, go away from just ball movement, operating with a purpose. And you just end up everybody kind of standing around, looking, watching, ball watching, and you take ill-advised shots. Or you understand that collectively you are a smaller team. You understand that you're playing a small lineup, and thus it requires every single player out there to have the mindset when that ball goes up, I'm not stargazing and just looking at it. I'm turning, I'm finding my man, and I'm recognizing that each and every one of us has to do our due diligence to make sure that we secure this basketball. And for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to register. Like there's too many instances still where you see the ball go up. You understand that you need to get rebounds. You understand you need that. That's part of your defensive philosophy is to get them to get one and dones. And yet this continuous mislaps of looking at the ball as it goes up. You have Anthony Davis boxing out, and this is kind of what he was referring to in his post-game comments. Like, we all need to be committed to helping each other defensively. And rebounding is part of that. When the ball goes up, you find your man, you secure the guy, or you see LeBron, or you see Anthony Davis boxing out his guy. That's when guys come down, collapse, and corral the rebound. For whatever reason, though, they seem to miss. Again, it's just habits. When habits just become now a part of your DNA, that's when it becomes incredibly challenging to eradicate, because now it's just a part of you. It's a part of your DNA as a team. When habits become just ingrained aspects of you, it's no longer just something where you can, oh, it was one game, we'll get back to, because it's literally a part of what your system is now. And you watch the Utah Jazz, or just really just 90% of the teams, when you're watching, there's ball movement. There's player purpose, meaning guys are moving, guys have a role, guys are initiating with a purpose. They understand what they are out there to do. They are empowered within the system. You see Utah, balls moving. Every guy has a purpose and where they're going, where they're spacing, where they're finding the open spot to hit the shots. That's how you generate the extension of different byproducts of shot selection. When you have that type of movement, when you have that type of understanding from a team concept, where it's not just relegated off one or two guys and feeding off their action, everybody has a role. Everybody's empowered. Everybody then becomes that much more challenging to defend, because it's not just 1 against 5, it's 5 against 1, right? So these are just elements. These are just components to why the Lakers continue to struggle. Yes, they have done a better job in improving in their offense, but it's, like I said, it's coming at the detriment of their defense. And you recognize that it's kind of fool's gold. Yes, we've seen the Lakers be able to have really hot runs. They shot 68%. They shot 68% in that first half, and we're still losing the game. And you realize that, again, it's not sustainable to shoot 68%. It's not sustainable to be, 6 of 9 from 3, or yes, you're shooting at a great clip. You're shooting at a very high percentage, but you're literally giving the opposing team everything they want. So you're not creating any separation. And again, it's all related. You need to have solid offense, but you need to have solid defense. The defense needs to help the offense, and the offense helps the defense. It's all universal. But for whatever reason, or I shouldn't say for whatever reason, because this is just a theme with the Lakers. It's a very much a byproduct of talent. It's very much a byproduct of a system that's not very conducive to a team aspect, but more to specific players' strengths. Anthony Davis, in his post-game comments, kind of giving his comparison to that first year he was here. And
I mean, it's a little different because I was able to roam a lot. I think I was playing the 4 then. JaVale was playing the 5, and Dwight was playing the 5. So going on perimeter, knowing I got some guys behind me, and or weak side helps. Getting blocks on the weak side. Now when I'm the five, I'm the one in action, taking roles, one guarding the post, things like that. And we were flying around. I mean, we were really good defensively, and we're really good defensively this year as well. I think roles just changed a little bit as far as me, as far as positions. In 1920, I was like a roamer, where I can.
Rightfully so, it created that long depth. It created the length and the size that really made this Los Angeles Lakers team have a great mismatch, because you have Anthony Davis, you have LeBron, you have JaVale McGee, you have Dwight Howard, you have these bigs that can enforce their will inside, but more from a defensive standpoint, you have different guys coming at you defensively. But Anthony Davis, making it clear that he doesn't want to play the center position. And it almost comes to this point with me where, like, yeah, maybe you should stop playing him at the center position, because if it's going to create this much of an ask from him, like if it's going to generate that much extra effort from you, and if it's going to impact your game, then yeah, go ahead and put him at the power forward position where he can kind of roam around and not necessarily take on the extra burden of guarding these actual centers, because clearly it just takes away from his overall aggressiveness. It takes away from, just his ability to be, again, aggressive. I don't know. It's just, when I heard those comments, it just comes to me, it registers to me like, we need to stop pretending that this guy is a center. He's not. We also need to stop pretending that him playing the center is the best for this team. Like when we talk about, the death lineup and Anthony Davis playing the five, that was many moons ago. That was a completely different roster when that was the case. It's not the case right now. Playing him at the center, especially when you are a smaller team and you're relying on the other four guys to kind of help you from a defensive standpoint, whether it's rotating earlier, whether, you're seeing guys take him off the dribble. Nobody's committing over to slide over and take charges. Nobody's making that rotation. When it comes to the rebounding, again, Anthony Davis is only one person, right? Like, I think he only had like two or three, four rebounds. Like, he went, and his rebounds for the year has gone up. But it's just, when you are relying on Anthony Davis to not only be the defensive presence, offensive presence, there's so many other intangibles that you need to be solidified that he can't secure. So from a rebounding aspect, he can't get all the rebounds. You need others to commit to that. And for some reason, they continue not to. You see their inability to come out in those second halves. I don't understand, why doesn't Darvin Ham start Russell Westbrook in the second half? I understand he's a bench guy. He's your sixth man. But when Russ comes in, when Russ has been coming in off the bench, he's been providing so much energy for this unit and kind of shocking them back like into life. And I feel if the second half, especially that third quarter, if that's become your Achilles heel in terms of getting the energy, in terms of getting the spark that you needed, why not put Russ to start that second half? You're already bringing him in like with a minute or so to start that third quarter. He's coming in at like the 9.5 mark. Like you're basically playing a minute or so of the third and you're bringing him in. Why not just start him in that second half. In the most pivotal quarter where you are having the toughest time coming out with the level of energy, with the level of focus, with the level of consistency, why not have Russ start that second half to kind of get that thing kick-started? You know, it just, I mean, like the whole whack-a-mole. There's a lot of things that you can kind of point to. And again, that's just kind of the byproduct of a very poorly rostered team. And it's just also the byproduct of, you know, again, investing most of your salary in essentially 3 players. And this is kind of just harps back to my point of that I've expressed in other episodes, I've alluded to in other occasions when it comes to this discussion of homegrown versus super teams. Like, I just believe the super team model is done. If you're just stripping it and trying to put it together, you're seeing that it's just a very challenging endeavor to accomplish. Now that we're seeing how talented really these players are coming out of the draft, how well teams overall are developing these young players are I mean, for crying out loud, the Utah Jazz they're supposed to be looking like the Lakers. They're supposed to be 2-8. I mean, if we're gonna go off just the optics of everything, everyone's, oh my God, they're tanking for Victor Wembanyama, right? Like, this Utah Jazz team has completely rebuild mode, and they are 9-3. They coming off a back-to-back where they were on the road and they beat the Clippers. Oh yeah, how are those Clippers doing, by the way? I know they're doing a lot better than the Lakers, but I mean, it was a foregone conclusion that the Clippers were the team to beat. Well, there's a lot of other teams that are looking like the team to beat right now, and it's not the Clippers. I mean, can Kawhi Leonard play a game? Real quick, and I know others have made mention to this, and I think it was The Truth, Paul Pierce, who recently said this about this whole what's the word? Contradiction, right? Like, this hypocrisy. There's the word, hypocrisy. You know, you're calling Anthony Davis street clothes. We know Anthony Davis deals with injuries. We understand from a national optics, the guy is viewed as just incapable of being reliable. But for crying out loud, then what does that make Kawhi Leonard, man? Like, if Anthony Davis is Mr. Glass, then what does that make Kawhi Leonard?
Bubble boy.
What's a bubble boy?
He lives in a bubble.
Boy.
But I'll just conclude with this. Right now, there's a lot of, finger pointing. There's a lot of blame going around. A lot that's being directed at Rob Pelinka, a lot that's being directed at Anthony Davis, a lot that's being directed at LeBron James. When it's all said and done, it all falls on Jeannie Buss. And I understand that we can get into the discussion as to all the things that Rob Pelinka has done poorly. And I would simply respond by saying, well, who is the one that put him in that position? It's like, we can always yell, we can always point the finger at the troublesome student, or, we can always point the finger to the incompetent teacher. But at the end of the day, it falls on the principal, right? You're running your school. At the end of the day, it falls on the ownership when it comes to the struggles of not only the acquisition of talent, but then the actual construction of it. When you're having an individual put others in charge who do not have the experience, they do not have the qualifications, they do not have the resume. And not only does she hire that person, but then she extends them. So when it comes to this, and I remember Andy Kamenetsky, again, this will kind of be my last point. I remember Andy Kamenetsky, who you should go check out their Locked On Lakers, is epically awesome. Awesome. I've been listening to those guys for years. Love their content, love their objectivity. Just love how they're not afraid to just say what it is that's going on. Posing the question, if Rob Pelinka struggles again, like, what's the hot seat basically? What's his hot seat situation? And I remember I responded like, it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, the buck stops on Jeannie, right? I mean, that's what she said. And he responded, well, obviously Jeannie can't, Jeannie's the owner. She can't fire herself in that kind of rhetoric. And I understand, obviously she's the owner. She can't fire herself. But what my comment was more driven towards is it doesn't really matter who they bring in. It doesn't matter who the next predecessor is going to be, because as long as Jeannie's the one who's operating it, it is going to lead back to the same result. That was kind of my point in all of this. It's like, you kind of like that pimp my ride, like you can put all the aesthetics, you can put everything into making the car look awesome from an aesthetic standpoint. But if it doesn't have an engine, or if you're relying on the mechanic if you're relying on a mechanic who's not a mechanic, he's just like, he stayed at the Hilton or what is it, the Holiday Inn? Or
Did anyone stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night?
I'm a doctor.
Did anyone stay?
You can go and put a person that has the title as general manager or vice president of basketball operations, but if they literally do not have any experience or they do not have any resume to show for what they can do in that position, it doesn't matter. And that's the problem. That's the issue, is that Jeannie is incapable of going outside of her bubble, the bubble of trust, right? This nostalgia where it's filled with her ex-lover, Phil Jackson, her best friend, Linda, and her husband, Kurt, and like all these long-time friends that have been in the organization with her forever. Not really had anything to do with the basketball operations, but they just been there with them. Solidarity, girlfriend. I love you. But it's like, until she is, I'll say, like, take the training wheels off and say, you know what? I got to go outside and get people that actually know what they're doing. They don't need to have any connection to the family. Okay? There doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be some former babysitter that used to watch you, or the lifeguard at the YMCA you used to swim at, or some bartender that knows Jim that gives them a 2-for-1 deal on Thursdays. Like, have the professional foresight to recognize, and what makes all great owners is when they know they're not able to perform the task at their highest ability, they get the people that can to do it. For whatever reason, that philosophy is just not in the realm of Jeannie. So, Lakers. You have a wonderful day, y'all. All right. I will be back for another episode. Clippers versus Lakers. Ciao.